Okay, I want to welcome everyone again to this session. I am Stephanie Dixon, and I'm a part of the Emerging Leadership Track Committee. You can enter any questions you have in the Q&A on Whova. There's also a chat feature in Whova. We don't have the chat enabled in Zoom. And also, please remember to rate the session at the end. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Allison Henry.
Hello, I'm Allison Henry, and I am a senior robotics operations engineer at Toyota Research Institute, where I have been for 5 years, and I've worked in robotics for about a decade now. So in my presentation, I'm going to talk about adaptability and perseverance and allies, and I'm really excited to see that some of the people that inspired this talk are now attending this talk, so I can thank you directly and hopefully convey what an impact you've had on my life and my career. But more generally, if you're not me and you're not these people who've been my allies in my career, I'm hoping that this talk will serve anybody who, like me, is working in tech with a non-technical degree background, or anybody who will work with somebody like me, or who currently does and wants to understand them better. So hopefully that means this talk is for everybody. So one of the things that I've done in my past is I got my yoga teacher certification. And if you've ever attended a yoga class, it might be familiar, this concept of setting an intention in the beginning of your yoga practice, or in this case, in this talk. So I would like to invite everybody listening to think of an opportunity that changed your life for the better, and how that opportunity may have made you more resilient in the face of adversity. And probably somebody gave you that opportunity. It didn't just spring from a vacuum. And you probably had to do something in order to earn it and take it. So please keep that gratitude for that opportunity that you've had in mind as you listen to this talk. So where I am now, this is what I love about my job. I get to work with robots, which is great. And my favorite thing that I do now is I can take some procedure that the software engineers come up with that looks like a bunch of nonsense gobbledygook that few people probably can make sense of. And I get to work through all of the kinks and turn it into a procedure that anybody can run, and then basically amplify the force that I could provide by as many people as I can train up, and try to make it as painless as possible for the people who are learning it to do so, which is like a Promethean sort of endeavor, except for that instead of the gods wanting to punish me, they're actually grateful because they have more people then who can do the things that they want them to do. So that's basically my favorite thing about what I do now. And I also get to work with some of the most brilliant people in the world on some of the most cutting edge technology in the world. So can't complain about that either. And I have access to a whole lab of robots that I got to play a big role in setting up. Like I ordered, assembled, and put together, organized all of the things that you can see in this picture, more or less. Not by myself, but I played a significant role, right down to that truss that the mocap system is attached to, and the mocap system itself. And well, that's not in use for this. Anyway, I'm going on. There's me, there's a robot. That's what I do now. So before COVID, I got to go to Japan a few times in support of this little robot on the right there, the human support robot. I got to meet the people that developed it and learn how to service it mechanically. And then I supported the United States teams that were using it as a standardized platform in the RoboCup competition for the at-home portion of that. And that was great. I also got to see the Amazon Robotics picking challenge, as you can see by my fan. And there's this picture in the center, which is like way early TRI, when we were building our very first two autonomy systems to add to these cars that apparently were originally going to be purchased by Tom Brady, but it was in Flakegate, so we didn't buy them that year. That's the story. I don't know how true it is, but that's what I've heard. Anyway, we drilled holes in that car, and we added a bunch of sensors to it, and there's me building some cables for what looks like a radar there. So that's what I get to do. And since COVID, we've been adapting to working from home, and I work as part of a very hardware, hands-on lab kind of team. And so figuring out ways that the whole team can continue to be productive when we don't have access to the lab like we're used to has certainly been a fun challenge, I think. We all got our toes wet exploring GitHub. We did some projects with that so that we could better interface with the software engineers. And we passed around these 3D scanners with this like sterilization protocol built into our documentation package, and improved our skills as a team in making 3D scans of these objects upon request, to make 3D models of things for the other robotics teams. And in this picture are some crates containing 500 pounds of robot that was delivered to my house so that I could do qualification testing on it, to make sure that the contractors who developed it for us had done everything, that I could repeat their results basically before sending it to the end user in California. And as you can see, those crates are wider than my doors to my house. So I had to plan around receiving those so that it wouldn't be raining when they arrived, and I could quickly open up the crates and get everything into my house before the robot got rained on. And it was springtime, and my house was under construction, so that just added to the fun. And to further add to the fun, the delivery person wanted to drop those pallets, or those crates rather, off at the end of my long gravel driveway. And I had to run out and plea with them to bring it closer to my door, because I don't have a pallet jack at home. So it's been exciting, but there's been plenty to do, actually. Well, how did I get here? I've had a few big breaks. When I was a kid, I was good at math and science and generally got good grades in school, and I ended up skipping 4 grades of math and taking Calc 3 when I was 14, and I also learned to solder and read a schematic. And I started working when I was still in high school, part-time, for a little electrical engineering company. And this is not a picture from that company, but it's got a lot of the kind of test equipment that I would have used, and a very similar vibe. So I was doing circuit board assembly and testing and box builds and just wiring kinds of things, and inventory management. And I would modify circuit boards and have them converted the files and send them to the shop that would make the circuit boards, and then I'd stuff them myself and test them and deliver them to the end user. So I had kind of a growing range of responsibilities there, which was great. And I was there for about 7 years, working mostly part-time. And then I moved to Boston, and I was a preschool teacher, which was great. I got a philosophy degree before that. And I knew I didn't want to work in defense from working with that company. And that was kind of what was around me in Maryland when people had tech jobs. And I knew that that was not the path that I wanted to be on, but I wanted to figure out how to like directly contribute value to the world and like find, meaning in life. And so, yes, that's why I studied philosophy, and that's why I became a preschool teacher too. I also just liked working with kids, and it was really inspiring to see them develop under my care, and I liked developing curriculum with them. I got my yoga teacher certification because yoga had made a big impact in my ability to like manage my stress, and it felt really good, and it made me feel healthy, and so I wanted to share that with people. And I started an after school gardening program. I dabbled in circus arts. I did a whole bunch of things, and then I was broke and in a difficult situation, I guess, in life generally. And I wanted to get back into tech, and it wasn't the first store that I went through, but Jaybridge Robotics made a huge difference in my life. And I this picture shows their autonomous tractor that follows along with this combine as it harvests. And as the hopper gets full of this combine, it offloads into this big cart that this tractor pulls, and the tractor lines up with it. And where you have agriculture on a large scale like this, typically it's not very densely populated, and it's difficult to find sort of seasonal work. So it was a cool thing. We also worked on autonomous mining vehicles, which is like big above ground surface mining vehicles. But that was a really awesome experience. And I started there doing like box builds and wiring, and then documenting those things, and then helping to prepare the kits for field trials, because we would send all of this equipment that we would need out into the middle of nowhere and have a very limited time on the ground when we were in the middle of nowhere, and have to do all of our testing and our installation and tear down. And we, wouldn't have the convenience like we do of waiting for like a DigiKey order, or even going to like a hardware store. You're not sure that they're going to have everything you need. So eventually I started out as a tech there, and I became a field engineer there. And that led me to TRI. So some challenges that I've had having this unconventional background. It can be difficult to establish your value when your experience comes from your work and not from your degree. And it's mostly when I'm working with new people that sometimes sort of my expertise gets called into question. And not even just my expertise, but like my value at all. And not everybody is going to recognize, why you're there, or like look for why you're there. So you kind of have to make that clear yourself. And that can even be difficult. Some people working in tech really like things to fit into neat boxes. And I've had someone tell me, like, I don't understand your role. And it's like, well, these are the things that I do. And try to show them. But like getting a PhD or a master's degree is like a demonstration that, hey, like you put in the time and you have the talent and the dedication to learn these things that make you valuable. But like, what if you don't have one? Well, I've kind of tried this. You can hope that you do your job so well that no one will notice that you don't have a degree in what you do. But since you have to learn a lot on the job and be given opportunity to develop your skills and to grow, you can't kind of pretend that you know everything already. And even if you do, like, you really can't fake it till you make it, because people will see through that. It's transparent if you don't know something, especially if you're trying to communicate with people who do. So you have to start where you are and be honest if you have like a skill gap, or you don't know anything, or you don't know something, and you have to figure out how to learn it and actually make it. And that requires some courage. It's hard to admit when you're working with experts that you don't know something sometimes, because sometimes you feel like you ought to know, or that maybe you don't belong if you don't know. I heard this quote recently and it really resonated with me, and it's part of why I am talking to you all today. But every time you use your voice, your power, and your privilege to show the world exactly who you are, you're paving the way for all of us who thought that invisibility would be our method of survival. And I have really like just wanted to, not had my background called into question the most of the time for the last 10 years. I don't know, forever that I've ever been a working person. Like just take for granted that I belong here and that I do things that are valuable, please. And if I do a good job, then maybe you will. But it's hard for me to admit that I have a philosophy degree, that I like spent a few years I don't know, exploring myself, I guess you could say. And before I got back into tech, because I want people to think that I belong where I am. But I think it serves everybody better if we can all just be ourselves comfortably and know that that's okay. So here's some advice for finding your ecological niche. First off, find your allies. Having support from people at work will make your life better. Just having friends obviously is better than not having friends, and allies are, that's just another word for friend. Maybe with less commitment, I don't know. Maybe with more commitment, I don't know. I really appreciate all of my allies who are listening to this talk right now. And they'll help you develop yourself. So if you have a skill gap, then maybe you can talk to somebody and they'll have an opportunity for you that will, fill in a skill gap that you might have, or to advocate for yourself. Like, oh, I recognize that you have done this and you're not being acknowledged for it. Like, so, you can say that you did that and it's cool, or like, I will say that you did that. It's a very powerful thing to be able to do for someone. And if you're surrounded by specialists and you aren't a specialist, then try to understand how all the specialists fit together and how you can directly benefit each one. And then sometimes just making connections between people can be how you contribute value. Just always look for opportunities to be helpful. And no opportunity is too small when you're establishing your foothold. Like at JBridge, one of the tasks that I did was inventory. And I didn't know how to call everything. And so just learning the words for all of the inventory that we had in order to describe it was both really helpful when I did documentation work later, but it also just familiarized myself with all of the things that were part of the systems that we were developing. And that obviously dovetailed very nicely when it came time to do field installations. And communicating about what you do is an important part of what you do. So like I said, not everybody is going to look for your value, so you have to show them, and show them in ways that are not, look what I did, oh, look at me, but demonstrate and communicate about your contributions. Don't just like assume everybody notices. They might and they might not. But not everything that you need to be successful comes from you. There are elements to your environment that can contribute to or detract from your success. You need an environment that will support your ability to contribute value within it to be successful in it. So what does that mean exactly? Here are some qualities of a robust ecosystem. A growing and thriving field is really helpful. Like robotics happens to be a growing and thriving field. So there are lots of opportunities to enter it. I've really enjoyed working for small companies because it has given me a lot of room to grow, because there are a lot of needs and they're usually stretched pretty thin. So people are usually wearing multiple hats. And if you can learn to wear somebody else's hat and relieve a burden from them, then that's generally appreciated and it also helps you develop. So a growing, thriving field, and also a company with lots of room to grow and thrive within it. Allies, I can't emphasize enough how much of a difference it makes when people are friendly and try to express support for you. I mean, it's like being a band and having nobody show up to your concert or something like that. Like allies are the fans, that give you sort of this drive to continue. Mentors also are like allies plus. And I've had some really wonderful mentors. At JBridge, there was an electrical engineer who taught me really quite a lot and was very supportive of me too. Just generally, just really easy to talk to when like difficult things were maybe happening in my life that were distracting me from work. I could say like, oh, I'm not feeling that great today, and like we'd take a walk together, and then I'd come back and like get a full day, and it was really really helpful. And then Lucy Gibson would meet with me like once a month at TRI, and we would talk about goals and how things were going, things that were challenging, things that we were proud of. And it was just really, really helpful to have somebody understanding my perspective and, you know, sharing with each other about our lives. Just made work a richer place to be. So a positive company culture and positive values, like Toyota Research Institute explicitly says, be yourself as one of our company values, and respect each other. And leadership on down is actively invested in growing these values and working at them, not just saying them. So that's great. Employee resource groups are not something that I've had before at any other company, but it's really cool. We have a women's group and an Asian community and a African diaspora and an LGBTQ plus community. And it's like people that want to be your allies and people that are going through common experiences with you get together and talk through things that are unique to your group, which is really nice to have because it's not an even playing field. And then diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Again, this is relatively new to me at TRI, as of TRI, but it's like wonderful to have a company that acknowledges that the playing field isn't even and actively working towards making it more so, which has a positive impact in the whole world as well as within the company. And continuing education, always keep learning. So some lessons that I have learned, if you have an unconventional career trajectory, if you are the first one like yourself, bravely and unapologetically be yourself, because it will pave the way for future people like you to not have to pretend or not feel like they have to pretend to be anything other than they are, which is the only way to truly thrive. Like if you have to feel like you're putting on an act all the time to be something that you're not, then you're not thriving, even if you're doing fine, getting by. Be open to opportunities, find your allies, try and keep trying. And I hope that's applicable to anybody and not just people with unconventional career trajectories. And then paying it forward, if you would think back to the opportunity that you thought of in the beginning of this talk, what can you do now to help give somebody else an opportunity like that? Here are some suggestions. Do recognize and nurture the value of others and don't pigeonhole people. I think that that's one of the more complicated things about working at a more established big company. Sometimes like people will think about, you know, oh, this person does this, and then maybe that person would like to do that. And because they're thought of as the person that always does this, then it can be hard for them to try that. But that's one of the virtues, I think, of working at a new company or a changing company or a growing company or a small company. Look for opportunities to uplift others, be an ally, be a mentor, and volunteer, maybe as a big sister like I do. And thank you so much again for all of the people who've been allies and mentors to me, who are on this call right now, this Zoom meeting. You truly have made a difference in my life.
Thanks, Allison. This was great. Appreciate you sharing your journey. It sounds really actually kind of cool. So we're right at the end, but I'm going to ask you this question. Maybe you can just answer it quickly. You touched on it a little bit already in your talk, but the question is about coming from an unconventional background. Do you ever question if you should go back to school?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that part of why I haven't is that it's so expensive and it takes so long. Um, but I mean, I'd love to.
All right, thanks. And thank you everyone for joining. I hope you had an awesome day so far and you'll join us again tomorrow. Remember to rate the session. There's a button on Whova that says rate session. If you're on your mobile app, it'll have 3 little stars and the word rate. You can click on that to rate the session. And thanks again, Allison. Everyone have a great rest of your day.